All right, it is 7 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome, everyone. Excited to have you here for this webinar where we're going to discuss ways that you can enhance student observations with nature journaling. I think nature journaling is such an amazing way to spend time outdoors and build skills and a connection to nature, and I'm excited to explore that with you here today. As we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of quick Zoom things. When I shared my screen full screen, it probably went full screen for you. I do recommend that you exit full screen. You could do that by hitting escape or finding view options at the top of your screen. And there you should be able to select your type of view and exit full screen. The reason I recommend this is because that will allow you to dock the chat window to the side of your screen. And to do that, once you've exited full screen, you'll find the chat icon, which looks like a little speech bubble at the bottom of your screen. And then you can go over to here where you see to everyone and just make sure that that does say everyone. If it says host and panelists, if you click the little drop down, you'll be able to switch to everyone. This will allow you to join a conversation, share resources with each other, and have just a dialogue with one another. And as we get into today's webinar, I did want to just give one more shout out. We will be doing a sketching activity at one point, so if you can have a pen and pencil, or excuse me, pen or pencil and paper ready, that would be great. All right, so I am coming to you from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, where our mission is to interpret and conserve the Earth's biological diversity through research, education, and citizen science focused on birds. My name is Kelly Schaefer, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the K-12 education team, and I am joined by Susan Licker in the chat window, who will be able to answer questions and share links. So feel free to flag Susan down and she can flag me down in turn too. And here on the K-12 education team, our mission is to create innovative resources and deliver transformative trainings that empower educators to build young people's science skills through nature, participatory science, and inquiry. And we are joined today by a guest speaker, Christy Miner, who is a literacy coordinator with a local school district. And we're very lucky to have her share some of her experience with nature journaling today. So in our webinar, we will be discussing some of the benefits of nature journaling. We'll get to hear from Christy about her experience using nature journaling. We'll do a practice mark making exercise, and we'll also discover some lab resources to support nature journaling. So let's dive right in. I'd like to start by throwing it out to you. Why nature journaling? Why are you interested in this topic? If you've done it before, why have you done it? Why do you think nature journaling is a good educational tool? Erin says it's engaging. Absolutely. Jesse saying it can increase observational skills. Oh, lots of great answers flooding in. I see talk about helping kids connect more to nature, close observation. Middle schoolers love to be outside and looking at the world. Yeah, I see lots of helping students experience nature, learning to observe closely, slowing down, improving memory. Every perspective is different. Yeah, I love that. I think nature journaling provides us with an opportunity to both guide learning, but also allow for self-reflection and that reflection of different perspectives. Authentic writing, authentic literacy practice through pictures and words and numbers. Yes, awesome. A mindful practice. So many fantastic answers here. gets pencils in their hands and eyes on the world. I love that, Jacqueline. Yes, I think I'm seeing so many answers here that a lot of nature journaling curriculum tends to agree on. A lot of the reasons we see for why nature journaling and a lot of the reasons that practitioners use or cite when they use nature journaling is, like y'all said, just getting kids outside and into nature. And having these positive experiences can help kids develop a sense of place. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a moment. You can also create a real culture of curiosity. You're inviting students to slow down and observe and ask questions and just get curious about their world, which in turn can help them develop creativity and critical thinking skills. And a lot of times when you're out there observing nature, making these journal entries, curious questions will arise, and you can really capitalize on those questions and build some science practice and observational skills. Also provides us with a really great opportunity to embrace interdisciplinary learning, connecting these journaling opportunities back to what we're learning in the classroom, taking advantage of writing and reading skills, and as some folks mentioned, numbers as well. And we also have this opportunity to provide a mixture of structured learning through prompts and exercises and private reflection time, which can both have so many benefits. All right. So I really love this quote from Pico Iyer, who is a British novelist or a British author. And he says, in an age of acceleration, nothing is more exhilarating than to go slow. In an age of distraction, nothing is more luxurious than to pay attention. And I think this is a really great quote to kind of encapsulate a lot of the benefits of nature journaling. We provide the opportunity to students to really practice slowing down and paying attention and to look closely at both themselves and the world around them. But there are a lot of proven benefits to being outdoors too. So there's lots of research into the benefits of outdoor learning. These two infographics are from the Children and Nature Network, and they are really great at synthesizing a lot of the research out there that shows some of the benefits of spending time outdoors and learning in the outdoors. So we do see enhanced academic performance and enhanced attention. So we see increased performance across a lot of different subjects, including math, science, and social studies. We see enhanced critical thinking and problem solving skills. We see improved behavior both through an increase in focus and attention and a decrease in disruptive behavior and an increase in impulse control. We also see increased enthusiasm and engagement in learning, which are great. And it's provides us a real opportunity to tap into our students' excitements. And then we can also see a lot of benefits just for our students' health in general, both in their social skills, in their health, in increased self-esteem, stronger emotional connections to people and nature. And a lot of us who care about getting kids outside also care about protecting the environment and spending time outside learning increases pro-environmental behaviors as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment too. So there's so many benefits to being outside in nature, and nature journaling really provides us with a great structure and a great way to get students outside and getting these benefits. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of a sense of place, because I think nature journaling is particularly suited to building a sense of place. So, sense of place is a concept that you'll see across a lot of different fields of study, from geography to environmental psychology. And basically, its idea is that a sense of place describes how a person perceives a place, so how they relate to a place. And it can be broken down into two basic components: place attachment, or the bond between people and places, and place meaning. So, those symbolic and personal meanings that we attach to places. And these illustrating statements here I find to be a really great way to describe them. So, place attachment would be something like, I identify strongly with the Bronx. It is the best place for what I like to do. And place meaning, for me, the Bronx is community gardens, the Bronx River, and my friends. So, both of these are very personal, and are formed in a couple of different ways, which we'll get to in a moment. This infographic here, or this chart, is from the paper referenced at the bottom of this slide here. I do have a link to that, and I can share it in the follow-up email if anyone is interested. It's available as a free download. And so there are two main ways that we can build this sense of place, and that is through experiential and instructional experiences. So experiential is more of the being outside and doing yourself. So direct, sometimes long term, but often frequent and positive experiences in a place can build that strong sense of place and a strong place attachment. And you'll also see instructional as a way to do that. So conveying predetermined or developing new place meanings through different instructional methods like discussion, texts, art, and other ways. And this can both affect places that you are at, whereas experiential is like places that you have been. Instructional can both be for places you have been to, but also places you've never been. There is some research showing that you can develop a sense of place for some place you've never been if it has some sort of meaning to you. And then in this combined area is where environmental education tends to live. And this is where I think also nature journaling really thrives, because it combines both this experiential part of being outside in nature and the instructional part where you can guide with readings and prompts and exercises, and take advantage of both of these ways to build a sense of place, to your local habitat. And one of the reasons we care about this is because the research does show that both of these types of sense of place, so both the place attachment and place meaning, help build pro environmental behaviors. I feel like place attachment is a little bit stronger of a relationship, but I'd have to go back to the paper again. But they both have a role in increasing pro environmental behaviors and helping students develop connections to their local habitats. All right, so nature journaling also, as you all mentioned, is a great way to build observation skills. So I always like to remember that observation is not a skill that you have or don't have, but it is a skill that you can learn. And practicing observation skills really does support critical thinking. So getting outside and using these nature journals to practice our observation skills has a lot of payoff in other areas of learning as well. And what's fun is when we turn on this observational part of our brain, it often leads to questions and discoveries about our world. And as educators, we can really harness these curiosities to deeper learning. And we do have a resource I'll mention later. You could even capture some of these questions and turn them into scientific investigations. So there's so much that can come from building observational skills. And it's just such a worthwhile endeavor, I think. And there are a couple ways that nature journaling supports building observational skills. Since it uses both writing and drawing, one of the things I like about it is it provides different students with different strengths, different points of entry into nature journaling. So if writing intimidates you, but you're great at drawing, you have a way to relate to nature and record what you're observing, and vice versa. And by combining the two, we're not only building visual literacy skills, we're helping students build on their art strengths and build up areas where they feel less confident. So, some of the benefits from nature journaling we see when it comes to writing is we're helping students practice organizing their thoughts because they're trying to articulate what they're observing in the natural world and really clarify those ideas to write them down. It also really does a great job of helping us strengthen our memories by having us put them into words. And we can use writing in both descriptive and creative ways when it comes to nature journaling. So you could try writing down scientific observations, but you can also write poetry about the things that you see. So it provide taps into both of those aspects of our curiosity. Drawing similarly encourages close observation and really encourages us to notice things that we might not have noticed otherwise. If you're trying to put something into a drawing, you keep returning to it and notice tiny details that you might have otherwise missed. Again, similarly to writing, it improves memory, it just provides us a different way of recording what we're observing and can be both descriptive, as in scientific drawings, or creative. Um, I kept a nature journal once where I kind of imagined what things might live in the areas I was sketching out. So you can really take it in fun directions as well and incorporate both of these aspects of descriptive and creative. And when I do observational work with students, I often like to incorporate poetry. I think it can be a really powerful tool for setting the mood. So I wanted to share this poem with you that I really like to use when I do this kind of work. And I think it has some great connections to nature journaling right in the text of the poem. So I'll take just a moment to read it for you quickly. This is called The Messenger by Mary Oliver. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums. Here the clam deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing, since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to sing shouts of joy to the moth and the wren, to the sleepy dug up clam, telling them all over and over how it is that we live forever. And so, right in the text of this poem are some lines that really, to me, encapsulate part of what nature journaling can help us achieve. My work is loving the world, and let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. And by incorporating nature journaling into our practice, we are inviting students to find that stillness and to take the time to learn to be astonished. And we're helping them find ways to love the world and build their connection to it. And another way that we can invite this stillness and provide an opportunity to nature journal is through using sit spots. So the idea behind sit spots are that students choose a personal spot that they can return to over and over again throughout the school year. And it is a specific location for focused, quiet observation of nature. And then they can record their observations with prompts or without prompts in their nature journals. And sit spots really allow students to make meaningful observations over time, noticing seasonal changes, and to feel a sense of ownership, or maybe not ownership, maybe more stewardship and connection to their spot, and make better and more detailed observations because they are returning to a location over time and are opening up another avenue of observing change. And so we will have a resource coming out in the next 2 or 3 months, featuring sit spots. And this is our Spark Student Curiosity with Outdoor Exploration Guide. And it will have prompts, and it will walk you through some outdoor education, outdoor exploration teaching tips. So definitely keep your eye out for that. We will share it when it is live through our social media and our e-news. And with that, with some of the underpinnings of nature journaling discussed, I would love to hand it over to Christy, who will share some of her work with nature journals. So Christy, you should be able to steal the screen share from me and take over when you're ready. I can see it. Looks good.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And thank you to Kelly and Susan for extending this invitation to me this evening. I'll begin by sharing a little bit about myself. This is my 30th year of teaching in the Whitney Point Central School District, and it's located about 30 miles southeast of Ithaca. I began my teaching career as a special education teacher before teaching fourth grade. And for the past 15 years, I've been the literacy coordinator, working primarily with teachers and students in fourth and fifth grade. I recently completed my doctorate at Binghamton University, and my dissertation focused on the intersection of observation, drawing, and writing. And that really is what led to my interest in nature journaling. In my spare time, I enjoy birding, bike riding, and hiking. And my connection with the Cornell Lab began in the summer of 2019, when I had the privilege of working with the education team as part of the Teacher in Residence program. And Kelly recently contacted me about sharing my experiences nature journaling with my students, and the timing really was perfect. This school year, two of my fourth grade colleagues had expressed an interest in engaging in nature journaling with their students. And thanks to a grant funded by Donors Choose, we were able to purchase journaling supplies for all of the students in both classes. Our supplies consisted of 5x8 blank journals, colored pencils, regular pencils, and plastic zipper pouches for storing the supplies. In both classrooms, we decided to schedule weekly sessions of journaling during writing workshop, which is generally around 40 minutes long. During our first session, students received their supplies and they personalized their journals with nature-themed stickers that were also included as part of the grant. Next, I introduced this observation strategy to students. I developed it along with a drawing strategy as part of my dissertation research with input from nonfiction children's book illustrator Bob Marstall. A number of years ago, he presented a program at my school, and the work he shared around close observation and drawing planted the seeds for the work I did in my research. Using the observation strategy, we taught students to be more intentional with their observations when engaged in journaling activities. There were separate lessons for each component of the strategy. And to guide our activities, I used this resource that I think Kelly referenced a little bit ago, written by John Muir-Laws and Emily Ligren. It's a comprehensive resource designed to help educators lead structured journaling activities. In the next few slides, I'll briefly touch on some of the activities that we engaged in since beginning our journaling experience. Our school has a large, flat, grassy area located right next to a river. We're located next to the Tioughnioga River. So we generally take students to that area. The first activity that we did together is called Soundscape Maps. It's a simple activity, but we had students spread out on the field so that they had their own space and spent about 15 minutes listening to all of the sounds that they heard during that period of time. In their journals, they drew a simple figure of themselves in the middle of the blank page, and then they put marks around where they heard sounds, and then they labeled the marks to indicate what created the sounds. And during this activity called My Secret Plant, students again spread out and sat next to a plant that they found interesting. They each sketched and labeled their secret plant, and then after about 15 minutes, they paired up and traded journals. Using the label drawing, partners had to try to locate the plant that the other partner had drawn. This activity, called comparison, required students to locate two somewhat similar objects. They sketched and labeled their drawings, noting similarities and differences between the two objects. And then a final activity that I'll share is called String Safari. We used hula hoops instead of string, and students paired up and they found a place that looked interesting. It might have had an interesting looking plant or maybe even an insect or two. And in one case, I recall there was a giant hole that the kids planted their hula hoop over. And once they had the hula hoop in place, they observed closely. They recorded their observations using both drawings and words. And then at the end of each of our sessions, we gather the students back together to share and reflect on their work. Not all students choose to share, but a good number of them do. And after students had a number of opportunities to practice using the observation strategy, I introduced this drawing strategy that I touched on earlier. In work that I had previously done with students, I found that the process of drawing often frustrated them. And this strategy was designed to simplify that process. So students started by establishing a universe or a space in which they would draw their object. Next, they established landmarks, which are marks that they make on the paper that represent points on their object. And then they loosely sketch before going in and adding more descriptive, more detail. And then students applied the drawing strategy while sketching leaves that they had collected during one of our prior sessions. The strategy provided a scaffold that supported them as they sketched. And then next, as part of a multidisciplinary unit, students attempted to determine what type of leaf they had found. And during the course of their research, they used field guides and online resources. They consulted maps, they examined drawings of leaves, and they read information about the trees and which are likely to grow in our location of New York State. And then we tied our leaf identification activity into a writing activity. As students conducted additional research to respond to the prompt, "Why are trees important?" This task required them to consult multiple sources to present research-based evidence to support their opinions. Another opportunity for writing could include informational text. For example, students could conduct investigations based on questions that they would have generated during their leaf research. And poetry is another genre of writing that allows students to creatively express their observations. Poet and author Amy Ludwig Vanderwater has a really wonderful blog called The Poem Farm, and she shares weekly posts with students, teaching them about her poetry writing process. And very often, her poems are based on observations that she has made in the natural world. And then one last thing that I'd like to mention is a list of nature journaling resources that I've compiled over the past several years. It includes a list of picture books that can be read aloud to students, and each book emphasizes the message of the importance of observation in the natural world. The list also includes a number of teacher resources, along with websites that provide additional nature journaling supports. And I believe Kelly has that link, and she'll be able to share that resource for anybody who may be interested. Okay, and now I will turn it back to Kelly.
Sorry, folks, my computer froze. Hopefully you're hearing me okay now. So, Christy, we did have one question come up during your talk, and the question was asking about the age of the students that the drawings you were sharing was from.
Yes, they were fourth grade students, so they're between ages 8 and 10.
Awesome, thank you. All right, thank you for sharing your experience, Christy. Now, I would love for us to jump into talking a little bit about how to get pencil to paper. I sometimes have experienced with students who maybe don't feel artistically inclined, a hesitance to start drawing, and it can almost be kind of an intimidating experience. So, I'd like us to go through an exercise and consider ways that we can help students kind of break through that, let's call it drawing block. And the resource that Christy mentioned, How to Teach Nature Journaling by John Muir Laws and Emily Ligren, has a quote about that. And when I read that, I was like, I've definitely seen this in students. So, one of the biggest obstacles to journaling with students is a belief that the practice is only for gifted artists, or that you must be an artist yourself to teach journaling activities. Both are myths. You and your students can start wherever you are and learn the skills as you go. In the writing, he also talks about, or excuse me, they also talk about growth mindset and how focusing on that aspect of improving and just starting where you are is a great way to approach this, because nature journaling and the drawing and writing it entails is a skill that can be practiced, and it's one that you can develop over time. And some of the ways that we can help students get through kind of that block is by providing prompts like the ones Christy shared with us that provides the guidance they need to pick up that pen or pencil and get started writing or drawing. Or I like to do also some just simple practice exercises. If you have done our creatively building observation webinar before from last year, where we did blind contour drawing, that's a great one. I wanted to share a different one this time, called mark making. And so this is actually an activity from a Bird Academy course. So Bird Academy is the lab's online learning platform. And the course is called Nature Journaling and Field Sketching. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to our other resources section. So this activity is all about long versus short lines. So if you can have your pen and pencil and paper ready now would be a great time. So I'm going to challenge us to draw an object using one continuous line and then draw the same object using short, sketchy lines. And these short, sketchy lines you can think of as either coming from your wrist or your elbow. Your hand will like you better in the long term if you go for elbow, but you just want to make these short, sketchy little lines. But first, we're going to start with the one continuous line. And I want you to think about that process as we do it. So first, we're going to start with a circle. So we're going to try and draw a circle with one continuous line. So go ahead, grab your pen and paper and give it a go. One continuous line without lifting your pen. Okay, so I have my circle, and to call it a circle is somewhat generous. It's definitely a little lumpy. It is more of an oval, and my starting and end point did not quite align, but somewhat recognizably a circle at least. Now, let's try drawing the same shape, a circle, with those short, sketchy lines. What's great about these short, sketchy lines as we go is we can adjust. So I'm doing a lot of little adjustments as I'm drawing my circle. It's also easier for me to see where I'm aiming when I'm drawing these short little sketchy lines. So my circle actually meets up with the other side, which is pretty exciting. So it's more of a closed loop. So hopefully you noticed a difference between those two ways of drawing. The short sketchy lines provide us with a little bit more control, more opportunity to correct. And now I'd like us to try that with a more complicated shape. So I'm gonna bring up an image of an acorn. And I would like for you to try to draw this acorn in those two methods again. So start with one continuous line. So let's go ahead and try drawing this acorn with one continuous line. And try to get all the little detail in the cap and the stem. Okay, so I just finished mine, and similar problem to the circle. The proportions are a little funky, and I had to make the bottom very skinny for it to meet up in the right way. Um, and it's definitely not not nearly as symmetrical as the image that I'm looking at. Now let's try this same exercise. I want you to try doing it with short, sketchy lines. And I'll ask you how it goes, and I'll ask you to share some thoughts in the chat window when you're done. Okay, I'm just about done myself. All right, this time I feel like the proportions are a little bit better. It's a little closer to the image of that I'm looking at on the screen. How did you all make out? What kind of difference did you notice between the two styles of drawing, the continuous line and the short sketchy lines? I'm seeing some that it went better with the short lines, felt more confident, more details. Yes. Cindy's noticing that her circle was almost perfect. Nice. Her perfect circle is difficult. Oh, that's an interesting observation. The short, sketchy lines have more stray marks, but it looks more accurate overall. I agree, Joanne. Capture more detail, Pammy's mentioning, and more control. Chevy's mentioning that they observed more with the short lines. Cool. Yeah, I love this. Thank you so much for playing along. Um, Interesting that the short line raises kind of that oops art anxiety response. This exercise is sort of designed to try and help you get through that a little bit, but I totally get why that can bring that up because like with the one continuous straight line, you kind of know it's going to be a little funky. And with the short sketchy lines, it feels maybe more like you're trying to be artistic, so that can be a challenge. Um, but I think activities like these where it's low stakes. It's just meant to be kind of silly practice, and you know your results aren't going to be great, is a good place to start for students who might have some of that art anxiety. Thank you for playing along. In the course, which I'll talk more about later, Liz talks about these short, sketchy lines providing more of an opportunity to observe detail and capture that detail. A lot of the same observations that you all shared as well. So thanks for trying that out with me. Now let's take a moment to talk about some tips, tricks, and tools. It sounded like from the chat window that some of you have done nature journaling before and that a lot of you have experience in the outdoors teaching. So I would love to hear whatever strategies you might have used before to get the most out of nature journaling or similar activities. And this can be classroom management tips or anything that comes to mind for these sort of activities. Please feel free to chat and share anything that comes to mind in the chat window. And I'll give you a moment to type, and I'll share some that we pulled from another free resource. So, some of the tips that we've gathered together about supporting successful nature journaling practices comes from the Beetles project professional learning session on field journaling. This is another free resource available to you. We will share a link to it in the chat window and the follow-up email. So there are lots of ways that you can support student learning when it comes to nature journaling. You can provide structure through prompts like we've discussed. You can provide more open structure through providing subjects for observation. You can even help students get started by suggesting methods for recording their observations. As with any kind of lesson, it's great to circle among students and provide timely support, especially as you're first building your nature journaling practice. Students might have some challenges picking up and running with it, so having you circulate around and suggesting methods of recording their observations can be really helpful. And also, there's a lot of opportunity to connect prompts to your current unit and your learning goals and use them as an opportunity to support multidisciplinary learning. When it comes to providing feedback for nature journaling, it can be really tempting to compliment artwork for its skill or beauty, and it can be best to steer away from those sort of compliments and instead focus on complimenting the observations that you notice are being recorded, the effort that is being put into the work, and growth that you might notice over time. So, those are some tips adapted from personal experience and from the Beatles project. And now I do see that some great tips also came into the chat window. Pammy is saying draw with them. Show them that it does not have to be perfect. Not everyone is a Picasso. I love that. Yes, I love embracing this idea of learning and trying together. Erin is pointing out the importance of setting expectations for outdoor learning versus outdoor recess. And that's a super important one. Um, it's great to set boundaries and expectations. I've had a fair amount of success with having students co-develop the expectations depending on the age. You describe your goal and of outside observing nature and how can we best behave to do that. And often students will bring up being quiet as one of them. So lots of opportunity to work with students in developing the expectations. Pammy says that they like to emphasize that the nature journal is usually for yourself and you don't have to share it if you don't want to. I like that. That's great. So Laura is noticing that in their setting, a lot of the caregivers are very academic focused. And so talking about the benefits of nature journaling allows them to open up to having their children spend time outside and focusing more on some of these open-ended art time. I hope that's a fair summation, Laura. And there are so many more great tips in the chat window um, that I don't have time to go through all at the moment. So feel free to read through those, and I'll see if there's any extra ones that we should grab at the end of the webinar to share. So now I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about resources from around the lab that can help you in preparing for nature journaling. I mentioned the exercise we did is from the first lesson of the Bird Academy course, Nature Journaling and Field Sketching. The instructor for this course is Liz Clayton Fuller, and she is delightful and does a really fantastic job of inspiring creativity in a low pressure way. This course really is designed for your personal practice, though. It's not designed to be used in classrooms, but if it's something nature journaling is a personal interest for you, I highly recommend it. You might also find activities like the one that I pulled that you could use in your nature journaling practice with students. If you are interested in this course, just a heads up that you won't be able to sign up for it until after the 21st of March because our system is just down at the moment for maintenance. But you can still check it out and we'll share a link in the chat window and the follow up email so you can investigate it at your leisure. Another great resource we have for you is the Explorer's Guidebook. This is a free activity book that you can download from our website. And if you are interested in trying nature journaling with your students, but not quite ready to take the plunge on materials, this could be a way to approach it. You can use it similarly to how you might use a nature journal in terms of it has prompts that students can fill out independently or with guidance. It has a sound map activity, which is like the soundscape activity which Christy described. It also has habitat scavenger hunts and some bird ID prompts like looking for bird groups, observing color on birds, and sketching a bird. It is written at the fourth grade level, and so it can be done independently by readers at that level, or it can be done. I've seen younger groups use it with guidance as well. If you are looking for some ideas for prompts, you can mine our nature quests for families. These are bite-sized activities that can be done at home or in the classroom. And there are more than 50 prompts, half outdoor, half indoor. And they are often very adaptable as nature journaling prompts. For example, Outdoor Quest 13 is search your backyard or local park for foods you think a bird might eat, like berries, seeds, and insects. How many different kinds of food can you find? So that is one that could easily be turned into a nature journaling prompt. If you have an area with boundaries or a student at a sit spot, they can record what they observe that they think is good food for birds in their area. Another resource I wanted to draw your attention to is Students as Scientists. This is our latest free science unit. You can download it both for K-5 or 612 grade bands. It is a free inquiry unit. So one of the things that you will notice whenever you take students outside or do nature journaling is that often curious questions arise. And if you want to take that multidisciplinary learning further and capture those questions and turn them into science investigations, this science unit will walk you through that process. And then I wanted to just highlight again, since both Christy and I talked about this particular resource from the John Muir Law's website. They have a teacher resources page, which has the How to Teach Nature Journaling curriculum available as a free download, and it has another free download available as well. It also links to the Beetles project, I believe, from there. And Susan shared a link to the in the chat window as well. Definitely worth checking out if you're interested in nature journaling and kind of the underpinnings and theories behind it. It does talk about that in the beginning of the book, in addition to the field activities. Okay, I wanted to make sure we had time for you all to ask questions today of myself or Christy, so please feel free to put any questions that you might have in the chat window.
Kelly, we had one earlier, which was just someone asking what's the sorry, let me check. It was how old can kids start being introduced to nature journaling?
Great question. Christy, do you have a feeling on that one?
Well, I do. I actually, this last summer, I worked with a group. They were mixed ages, but the youngest was 6 years old. And she did a good job. I think it was the drawing might have been a little frustrating at times, but I think once she found objects that were a little less complex, I think that she felt better and had more success with it. But definitely, I would say, and I see somebody put toddler, so yes, I mean, the younger the better.
Awesome, thank you. I'm trying to think the youngest students I've done it with, probably the closest would have been my brownie troop. We did some similar activities. Yeah, I mean, like Christy said, if you use simpler objects and prompts, you can start pretty young. Jacqueline is sharing that she's done leaf drawing with 3 to 5 year olds. That's awesome. I'm seeing 4 year olds and as young as 5. Wonderful. And I did see a question um, regarding, okay, so I'm just going to read this out. I have many students who live in apartment buildings and do not have adults who have time to take them anywhere. During COVID online instruction, these kinds of students were thrilled to contribute bird observations from their windows. When thinking about sit spots, how do I best define how to choose sit spots? Oh, that's a great question. I suppose it depends on your goals and if it's at home versus if you have a schoolyard or local park that you access when you're doing these sorts of activities. I think for at home, your window solution is fantastic. Um, when it comes to sit spots in a location, when you have multiple students all out together and trying to find their own special little sit spot, um, generally when I've done it, I've had like a wingspan. I'm a bird nerd, so I say wingspan, but arm span kind of rule. Like you should be an arm span from the person next to you if that's possible. So you have that little kind of private space. Sometimes it can help to provide markers. We've had some teachers plant little flags where their students' spots are so it's easy to find again. You might not be able to do that on your grounds, and that's okay. Um, but yeah, so like that, you can use that arm span to kind of define their space. So pick their spot and then circle around them for their arm span could be their sit spot location. And you might want to direct them to choose if you have more than just grass, if you have like can be on the edge of the woods, that can be good. I mean, it depends on your safety concerns as well. I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure if that quite got at it. Nicole is suggesting ways to make their sit spot special, which I love. Having them find a special chair or pillow to use only for journaling. Yeah, if the space or the area and your journaling goals allow for that, that's fantastic. I love the idea of making it special. Oh, Richard is pointing out that Claire Walker Leslie's book, Drawn to Nature, has a section on window observations. That sounds like a fantastic resource. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful. Um, I'm going to go ahead. Please, if you still have questions, feel free to keep adding them in the chat window. I just wanted to throw up some contact information for us really quick. Um, if you would like a letter for a contact hour, please feel free to send us an email at k12lab@cornell.edu and I can send that out to you. We'd love for you to keep in touch with us. You can find us on social media, and our website um, is here for you. And we hope we'll see you at a future webinar. We've got a few more coming up. We go through June typically. Thank you so much, everyone. Really glad to have you tonight. Appreciate your engagement and sharing all of your ideas. Cindy, I similarly am like, why am I not out there sketching every day? I need to get back into practice. Thanks for sharing all your resources and ideas too, everyone. Please feel free to stay in contact with us. I appreciate having you join us tonight. And Christy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. It was awesome having you.
Yes, and thank you again for inviting me. It was fun.
Awesome.